Hey Redditors, welcome back to Roundup Reddit. Ever wondered what happened to the good-looking, ultra-popular kids who had it all in high school? We asked Reddit, and the answers are fascinating. Let's dive into their stories and see where they are now. Most beautiful girl in high school. Literally, every guy wanted to date her. She had a very high IQ. We met in elementary school in the Gifted Children program. I was smart, but not smart like that. Literally, she has a genius IQ. We were best friends our whole life. I'm 41 now, so is she. In high school, we were allowed to buy parking spaces. If you drove a car, you could buy a parking space and nobody else could park there but you, and you were allowed to decorate it. We had parking spaces right next to each other. She had the black Firebird. I had a red Camaro. She was in all honors classes. We were inseparable for years and years, including into my late 20s minus a few times we kind of drifted apart because of life. But for the most part, we also lived together for many years. In high school, I noticed she wasn't at school a lot. I would call her, before cell phones, and didn't get an answer, show up at her house, and she wouldn't come to the door. She still graduated valedictorian of our high school. I didn't see her or hear from her for months until graduation day. Suddenly, there she was. It turns out the man that had raised her since 2 years old had been molesting her. She moved out because her biological mother, who gave birth to her at 15, would not leave the molester. She had younger siblings who were fathered by her stepdad. So she moved out, told a school counselor, and there was a huge investigation, and somehow the stepdad never got charged. And this is the beginning of the end of this tragic story. She rejected a full-ride scholarship to follow her boyfriend, at the time, to Arizona. We are from California. I don't blame her because she was living with him the last few months of HS after his stepdad starting molesting her. It didn't work out in AZ, so they moved back home with his parents. Her mother was still in full denial, living with the stepdad who molested her. She broke up with that boyfriend, and I had broken up with my longtime boyfriend, so at 19, we moved into a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. We both had full-time jobs, and we shared groceries and expenses, and we were doing awesome. She dated a little, so did I. Then she got with this older guy. They were together 5 years, and he beat her, did a ton of drugs, and was all around awful. I left 1 year into living in our little house, and she moved in with the asshole she ended up staying with for 5 years. By the time 5 years had passed, I unfortunately had a boyfriend, who I ended up being with 7 years, and was not any better than her boyfriend. So after about 6 years of us not living together, we broke up with the assholes and got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. We were both working and making good money. But then she started dating this guy. I never liked him from Jump Street, but I kept my mouth closed. I tried getting to know him, but he was arrogant and boastful and just shady AF. He used to flip cars. One day, he showed up in a bright green Dodge Viper. I did not like that. He had a big truck, and I once went in the truck with them, and he scared me, his driving, in the big truck. I couldn't imagine being in a Dodge Viper with him. Unfortunately, the people who owned our rental sold it, so we had to move. I got us a new place just up the street, and she decided to move in with the Dodge Viper guy instead. He began beating her up, etc., threatening people at her job and getting her fired from one job. She had 2 jobs. He picked her up from work on November 1st, 2013, and he decided to drive 120 mph on a city street with a 35 mph speed limit in his Dodge Viper. He hit a palm tree. He died instantly. She was in a coma for 6 weeks. Almost had her left arm and right leg amputated. Right leg was in a wound vac. She shattered her pelvis, had a stent in her heart, a huge scar running down her head. When I went to see her for the first time, her hair was literally matted like a dog. She has very naturally curly hair. It took me literally 10 hours to comb out her hair. So now she's out of the hospital, but prescribed a ton of pain pills, legitimately. She had a ton of injuries. Ended up with a different guy who was a pathological liar and had a kink where he liked to share her with his friends. She was so broken by then. That lasted about a year. Then she met this other guy. They had an apartment together. She was on disability at this point. I think it's possible at this point she was using pills or street drugs because of the pills. So what did he do? He married her and then introduced her to meth. They then were living in a trailer in our hometown next to some railroad tracks. Basically, homeless. The trailer got towed away because the tags were expired, so now they were legit homeless. The trailer got towed away because the tags were expired, so now they were legit homeless. That lasted a few years until he tried having sex with several of her friends. They broke up. She's been with a bunch of different guys since, all drug addicts who abuse her. If I want to talk to her, I literally have to chase down leads. The last time I saw her was about 8 months ago, when I gave her a ride home from jail because she got caught stealing chlorine from a warehouse so she could resell it. I asked her where I should drop her off, so I dropped her where she wanted me to. It was a trap house. It's probably one of the saddest stories, and it keeps me up many nights. This girl has been super popular since primary school. Really smart too, straight A's a student, but also because she got all the jock boyfriends. I don't know how popular she was in university, but she went overseas, came back with a law degree, and then started her line of couture handbags. She was really living the high life, appearing in fashion magazines, runways, VIP parties, brushing shoulders with royalty, etc. Suddenly she vanished from social media for about a year. It turns out she went to a rehab, a very fancy one by the beach. Then she started posting weird things on her Facebook, things that don't make sense, and it turns out she has bipolar disorder. Now, she still lives with her mom. I lived in a town known for its oil refineries and chemical plants. Most of the popular kids I knew got hooked up right out of high school with good jobs at the plants and are now in high-level management positions, making high six figures. Some of them went to college and are entrepreneurs for various things, like one dude who has his own fitness supplements and another guy who has a marketing consultancy. Nearly all of the popular girls left Houston and went to college in Dallas. I don't know what they went for. They are now all in real estate or are housewives, and the majority of them married much older men. Several of them have been grandmas since they were around 30. A popular guy went to MIT and shortly after got disowned by his parents for coming out as gay. He was popular for being smart, charismatic, and a genuinely good guy. He and his husband are doing well for themselves nowadays. A popular girl went to a prestigious university and became a nurse. Similar to the popular guy, she is a genuinely good person, so everyone still loved her. I've run into her several times over the years, and she's still the same nice person. She could model if she wanted to, but she really does care about people and considers it a personal mission to help others via healthcare. We had several self-proclaimed popular people in our high school who were self-absorbed assholes. The third most notable is the guy who got kicked out of college when he tested positive for steroids and marijuana. He was also on a full-ride scholarship before getting kicked out. He has never completed any higher education to this day and has fallen into addiction. A girl who was very attractive and also self-proclaimed popular became an escort and eventually married a wealthy client. My husband recently attempted to run for mayor of the city and lost big time. The second girl, who was also very attractive, became a model, got knocked up without knowing who the father was, got into an abusive relationship, ran away, got knocked up by another guy who left shortly after she gave birth, and finally decided to get her shit together. Last I heard, she's finishing college to become a nurse, and she lives with her parents. We had a very large school, and I was considered popular in the way that more people knew me than I knew them, and I looked really good. I'm currently working on losing weight because, after a medical event, I got super into weed and snowballed into inactivity and weight gain. Because so much of my confidence hinged on my looks back in the day, I became a lot more introverted. My circle is a lot smaller now, and I've been domesticated by my wilder ways. I'm also a lot nicer after growing up a bit, almost detrimentally so. I didn't finish college because, at the time, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder was just considered an attention deficit. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder paralysis and other symptoms weren't known to be attributed to that. So I struggled with the independence of not having supervision and not knowing it was due to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I didn't know how to manage it and just thought it was a personality defect, so I didn't do all my coursework. It turns out I'm pretty good at sales and have reached a fairly high-level role as an individual contributor in software sales. I don't have an engineering brain, but I just kind of followed the money. He got involved with selling drugs after high school, and two of his best friends ended up overdosing and dying within a year of each other as a result of drugs he gave them. He went to therapy and tried to turn his life around, but the guilt was too much for him to live with. He committed suicide at age 22, 2 years after his friends died, by jumping off an overpass into traffic. He was the kind of guy who was friends with everyone and was typically the class clown, but teachers still loved him. His funeral basically acted as a 5-year reunion for our graduating class because so many people showed up to say their goodbyes to him. I still think about him often.